Good morning, everybody. We've got a mixed trade in the grain markets here early on Monday morning. It is 6:30 a.m. Central Time. March corn futures down 2 1/4 at 6.14. March soybeans down 4 3/4 at 14.09 1/2. March Chicago wheat up 5 cents at 7.85. March Kansas City wheat up 8 3/4 at 8.02. March spring wheat up 2 cents at 9.38. If you guys are listening on the podcast, appreciate it. Leave me a rating or a review if you have not already. I could certainly use some more reviews on that Apple Podcast app. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Help me to grow this channel, guys. My goal is to get to 5,000 subscribers. We're approaching 3,700, I think. So certainly hit that subscribe button if you have not already. If you need some additional assistance from me, go to my website. It is www.standardgrain.com. Click on Grain Marketing Plan in the upper right-hand corner. I've got a really nice subscription service. I send out a ton of information to my subscribers every single business day and sometimes on weekends. $49.99 a month. You'll get my morning email, my text message service. My subscriber-only videos are included here, and I send out a new subscriber-only video every single business day and on the weekends during weather markets. On Friday, I did one regarding flash sales. How do flash sales work? How has China acted in regard to flash sales? Is China trying to fly under the radar when it comes to their purchases of U.S. soybeans in particular? I do a lot of different topics here, a lot of very grain marketing specific type topics, among other things. So certainly check out that subscription deal this week, guys. Cancel anytime, no obligation. I won't try to sell you anything else. The Russia-Ukraine story continues, tensions perhaps escalating a little bit this week. The U.S. Embassy said in a statement yesterday, military action by Russia could come at any time. The U.S. State Department announced yesterday that it was ordering diplomats' family members to leave Ukraine. President Biden and the White House reportedly weighing options to boost America's military assets in Eastern Europe in order to counter a buildup of Russian troops. That is fresh news this week. The White House and Washington had not discussed any sort of military action or troop movement or any of that sort of stuff up until yesterday when it was first reported. So that's a shift in the situation slightly. Ukraine officials not as concerned. The country's foreign minister called the move regarding the embassy premature and a manifestation of excessive caution. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken will meet with EU officials today to discuss the situation. NATO is moving more forces, putting them on standby in Eastern Europe. So the situation is ongoing. The wheat market rallied sharply on the open last night. It's backed off a little bit since, but this is very obviously a big story when it comes to wheat and corn to a lesser extent. Combined, Russia and Ukraine are projected to account for 29% of all global wheat exports this year. Ukraine is projected to account for 16% of global corn exports this year. So if this turns into some sort of conflict and it's realized and it results in any sort of disruption to the export situation, it's something that could drive additional export business to the United States for wheat and corn in particular, which would be a friendly item. So this uncertainty here regarding the situation, I believe to be kind of a friendly item in regard to these markets, but we haven't seen any actual action that would disrupt exports to this point. It's all just speculation. Scattered rains will fall over Argentina this week. A good chunk of Argentina's corn and soybean areas did pretty good last week in regard to rainfall. There's more in the forecast. So in Argentina, your later planted corn and most of the soybean crop, I think, still has quite a bit of potential. Early planted corn in Argentina has likely suffered some irreversible damage at this point. Northern and central Brazil will be pretty wet here over the next 7 days. 2 inches of rain, 3 inches of rain ballpark for a lot of these areas. Soybean harvest is active in these areas, so you may see some delays. There have been reports of flooding isolated here and there and maybe some quality issues, but there's still going to be excellent crops up here. The problem in Brazil is down here in the south. In particular, that's where the big losses are being penciled in. Corn and wheat sales, export sales, improved last week. Weekly net wheat sales for the current marketing year up 44% on the week, up 62% from the prior four-week average at 381,000. Corn sales for the current marketing year up 48% from the prior 4-week average, just over 1 million metric tons. Soybean sales were off about 9% on the week at 671. We did not see any big flash sales to China, as had been rumored. There was a lot of discussion last week as the soybean market rallied regarding some sort of big Chinese purchases, 1 million metric tons, 2 million metric tons. Maybe we'll see something like that reported here this week, but we have not seen it yet. When it comes to to accumulated export sales for the current marketing year, corn is 9% behind last year, soybeans 25% behind last year, wheat sales 23% behind last year. Last year was kind of a banner year in regard to row crop sales and shipments in particular, so we're not expecting to be on par with last year, but we'd like to see something a little bit better, especially in regard to soybeans and in regard to wheat. USDA did report some flash sales on Friday, 10 million bushels of corn to an unknown destination for the current marketing year, 5 million bushels of soybeans to China for the current marketing year, and that 5 million bushels is nothing, again, relative to the talk that we heard last week regarding 1 million metric tons, 2 million metric tons, that sort of business not being reported here at all. The U.S. stock market has corrected lower. At Friday's close, the S&P 500 had lost nearly 9% from the all-time high that was posted on January 4th. Last week's losses in the S&P, just last week, the S&P lost 5.7%. That's the worst week since March of 2020. And March of 2020 was like the COVID panic sell-off. The Dow lost 4.6% last week. The NASDAQ is in textbook correction territory. That index has lost well over 10% from the all-time high that was posted in November. Typically, like when you watch the news, they'll say, oh, we've now entered correction territory if you lose more than 10% from the peak. So the NASDAQ, by that definition, in correction territory. Investors are bracing for tighter Fed policy. I think that's the biggest thing going on. The Fed is very likely to telegraph its first rate hike in March on Wednesday afternoon. They've got their monthly meeting Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and in that statement following the meeting, it's very likely that they'll say, yeah, we're going to raise rates in March. And Goldman Sachs was out with a note over the weekend indicating that there is risk of an even more aggressive Fed policy this year. Like they're talking, there's risk of some sort of action at every single Fed meeting this year. So I think the market is certainly taking notice of that. We did have a cattle on feed report out on Friday. I'd call it a little bit bearish. Cattle on feed, 101%. 100 was expected. The placements number is where you got the negative stuff, 106 versus 102 expected. And the placements number is the one that they always missed, so that the trade always misses. So does the market react to this or not? I don't know. Marketing's 100 versus 101 expected. So I'd call that a little bit bearish. No guarantee, though, that the cattle market opens lower this morning. In the outside markets, the S&P is down 20. The Dow Jones down 113 points. U.S. dollars a little bit higher. The bonds are up a little bit. Precious metals mixed. Crude oil is down 11 cents in the March WTI contract at 85.03. Have a great day, guys. I will talk to you same time tomorrow.